Hello everyone and welcome back to the DreamHack Open, live from London, England. It is the home of the Queen. There she is there, having a walk downtown. And of course it is also the home of amazing Counter-Strike and an amazing analysis desk, if I do say so myself. I'm your host, Richard Lewis.
That's the worst thing I've ever heard said on Analysis Day. Making fun of the monarch of our country, the longest reigning monarch in British history. You have outraged me.
And a lot has been achieved under her regime.
You were born and not killed instantly
not thanks to her. I'm not even vying for the throne, Duncan.
Okay.
So anyway, next to me as always is my partner, Duncan Thorne Shields, the world's greatest CSGO analyst.
He said it.
I said it, must be true. And
right.
Joining us are the boys from PGL. It is Henry G and Sadakist. And actually, just on a serious note, boys, and I know we haven't had a lot of that during this desk. Do want to say you guys are doing great work out there in PGL. I think you've made a great casting duo.
Thank you,
no
sir.
joke coming.
Is this sincere?
No.
Yeah, you never know, right? Like, when are we going to get stabbed in the back like every other time?
I know.
Thorin's being quiet. This is the scariest part.
You're the best PGL duo there's ever been.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So
there's only been two.
All the community I know embracing what you do.
Oh yeah, there was that other one. My bad.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, great work, guys. So wonderful to have you on the desk as we go into a battle of the Titans. TSM versus EnVyUs.
Titans, the other French team.
TSM, EnVyUs, veto pending. We're going to wait and see what comes up maps-wise, but just some general thoughts about these two teams. It's the final we thought we were going to get right at the start of the tournament. They did deliver, but this is a, like I say, a titanic battle, and indeed, EnVyUs, stop thinking about Titan. They don't own the word, Duncan.
Right.
So EnVyUs, of course, they've never been beaten by TSM with this current lineup.
These guys definitely are the thorn in TSM's side, just purely down to fragging potential, so good at working as a unit, and TSM being that very aggressive side, we heard MBK say it earlier, they're so good at locking them down and actually finding the frags early on. And it seems like, though you have to say, TSM probably have a deeper map pool than them. It seems like the only map they have seen to beat EnVyUs on so far has been Dust 2. Yeah. And that's the only one I can really see it going down tonight. I still do favour EnVyUs as the main favourite tonight, but hopefully TSM have done their homework and we can see maybe a recalibration from them. We've seen them adjusting their CT setups, especially on Mirage today. We saw some change of roles within that map, so maybe a little bit of restructuring on some others as well to kind of counter what EnVyUs do.
The only gauge we have on these two teams in this tournament directly is that they have both now played Dignitas as well. And the team that was tested more by that Danish squad was TSM. EnVyUs seemed to have an easy road to the final so far. Now that said, it is a domestic rivalry. Dignitas does know TSM a little better, but if you want to read into that alone, then maybe you do favor EnVyUs heading into this. That said, I don't think things are going to be quite as smooth as they were at IEM when EnVyUs kind of had that pug style about them. They had the dark horse factor of the two new players in the roster, and the maps were pre-selected by the fan base as opposed to a strategic vetoing system. Overall, I think TSM's a better team, but it really is 50-50 between map choices and how these teams perform on the day.
Now, Duncan, I just wanted to ask you a quick question before you go into it, and that is that you've always maintained that the secret of a great rivalry is when one team can beat the other on any given day. It has to be even Stevens. Yeah. Well, so far, EnVyUs, since that lineup has come into being, they've had the better of it against TSM. Are we looking at a great rivalry here?
I mean, obviously, so far it has been one-sided. Like, it has looked like whether or not TSM was better, I still think they're better. EnVyUs definitely had their number before. They had the style to beat them, and they had the maps at the time. That's where I think this one's going to be the decider, because this time around, especially with this kind of format, whereas in the Major you have to realize you only had the one ban, and then you're just praying that the second worst map for you doesn't come out in the random selection, so you can never know in that scenario. Instead, in this situation where you can ban twice, I think this is the ultimate test for TSM. Like, if they ban correctly and they get the maps they want, then you can't really complain if you lose. Now, I think TSM can do it. I think they actually have the right map pool, and I think what makes this potentially a very interesting setup is that there's two maps that are really strong for TSM that the guys from EnVyUs do not want to play. And there's two maps that are really strong for EnVyUs where at least one of them TSM definitely doesn't want to play. So if they both teams ban correctly, we could get to maps where it could go all three maps. Right. It shouldn't just be a 2-0.
And where you say that it's ban and then pick the other, that does indicate that the first two maps should favor the team that picks them, and it'll be I think this could go 3 maps on that reason alone.
Yeah, Henry. I think that's absolutely fine. I think the fact we know EnVy are going to ban Overpass, we know they're probably going to ban Train, and so I think we're going to see that the 3 maps are really contest them, and hopefully this will go the stretch as well. I don't want it to be a 2-0. I want to make sure we have close games all the way through and get that third map coming up.
And that's also why it makes it so that in theory TSM is one of the teams who at least has a chance to battle EnVyUs, because EnVyUs is amazing on Cobblestone. We saw them play it today. And that's already the ban that's automatic, usually from TSM against other teams. So if that's their least liked map, they're not going to play it against a team who's very strong. And they've lost on Cobblestone at Gamescom to this team before. So they've even tried it, and it's like they're not going to try that at all.
And you two actually talked about this and had a little bit of a debate about it, because you thought TSM would take out Inferno against EnVyUs, which they've had success against Fnatic, and you still stick with Cobble. I lean toward Cobble, but you had a good argument for it.
I just think that the fact they've played it twice now, and that EnVyUs have taken that pretty convincingly both times. The fact that there's Inferno coming up, and we could see, you guys mentioned that Cash may be a map they could get rid of, but after we saw EnVyUs lose like 15-0 to VP at the last event, that's when you kind of think, oh wow, TSM could actually consider that to be a map against their pool now, right?
I think that's the interesting thing. That's the big question mark for me. It's how will TSM think about Cash?
Yeah.
Because they themselves, I've always thought they were a good team on it. It's always been like a baseline, middle of the pack type map for them. But recently they've been doing that sometimes as a ban or as a second ban. So will they kind of think, right, well, EnVyUs has been beating us, we have to look for a key weakness to attack. And if so, well, that's actually one of the few weaknesses we've seen in this new team is Cash. They haven't been able to master it like the old team did.
I think that's going to be the decider map, if anything. I think that's going to be number 3, and that could be really interesting to see how that one goes down.
When it gets to this sort of situation, and there's all this mind games about what we're going to do map-wise, which one of these people do you think, teams I should say rather, has the sort of deeper map pool? Which
I think it's undisputed at the moment that it's TSM. Because the thing is, TSM have been on the top, like an elite level team for a longer period of time. They've played many best of 5s, many best of 3s, and they've obviously won a large percentage of those. The problem for EnVyUs is, remember, if you have to kind of take the Gamescom tournament out of it because it wasn't really a pick ban tournament. So it's hard to think of those maps even as strengths in certain cases because they might never get to play them as often if someone knows that's your one strong map.
Sure.
Whereas for me, TSM have only really played 2 tournaments that were proper pick ban, which was the 2 ESL tournaments.
The map pool thing as well, that plays a factor into it, but where it's ban-pick format as opposed to ban-ban format, it does mean that EnVyUs are going to get one in that they're more favorable on, and even on the maps that TSM are supposedly better on, EnVyUs is still a skillful enough team that, given the right situation and circumstance, they can still upset them on it. I wouldn't even call it an upset. I would just call it a straight win.
That's why I think TSM has the deeper map pool, because as long as TSM bans Cobble first, every other map, even if it's one EnVyUs likes, TSM at least can play. It's never going to be the scenario where it's like, this is your map, definitely yours. This is mine, definitely mine. I don't think it's going to be like that.
We can talk about the map. It's the play style that EnVyUs offer to them. That's what seems to be the problem for TSM. Against other teams, their map pool's very strong. But what we talked about is Dust 2 is the only map TSM have actually been able to take off EnVyUs so far. It's the play style they struggle against. It's not necessarily what map it is. It's that they can't really handle or contain the EnVyUs players in any given situation.
And it's very likely that the second ban will be Dust 2 for EnVyUs.
I would agree. That would be it. Well, to be fair,
because it's Overpass and Dust 2, I think, are the must bans for EnVyUs right now.
Okay, well, look.
What about Train?
The problem is both teams don't really play that. So the thing is, we don't really know what EnVyUs is like on it to do a degree,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're going to find out very soon, but now, guys, we are ready to go to the stage. So we're going to throw over now to Manchus, who's going to introduce both of the teams in the grand final here at DreamHack London, TSM and EnVyUs.
How awesome is that? You're all getting so loud already. So, like Richard has just pointed out, we are now in the final. We've had a great competition. Have you all enjoyed yourselves? All right, and this is now the cherry on top of the cake. We are here. It's going to be an amazing match. And so I think we're ready, everybody, for the final. please welcome to the stage TSM and EnVyUs. Good luck, guys. Good luck, good luck, good luck. Final, everybody. Here we are. And for the last time of the tournament, it is Cajun B. Beautiful wink, cheeky, cheeky, cheeky. Secondly, we have ZipX, everybody. The captain himself, Carrigan. Still smiling after a long weekend, it is Dupree. And then finally, oh, something's happened there, but he's still looking beautiful. It is Device. Moving on to EnVyUs, the French powerhouses. Number 1 is Kiyoshima. Oh, and the cheer for this next man is going to be huge, I can already tell. Who is it? Who is it? It's Kenny S. Ooh, we all love Kenny, we love him. And then thirdly, it is Happy, the genius, the mastermind, as I called him earlier. Fourthly, we have Apex entry fragger extraordinaire, all-round amazing player. And then finally, the last of the bunch, we have NBK. Okay, so, Dupree, could you come over here? Oh, no, actually, no, let's get the, sorry, that's bad of me. Carrigan, we should get the captain. We should get the 2 captains. Can we get the captain from both sides over here? We're gonna have a little quick chat. First time speaking to Happy. Let's start with you. How are you feeling for this final?
Good.
Man of few words, always has been. Carrigan, what about yourself before we get into a few of the details?
Good.
Okay, making my job very difficult. So overall, you've had a pretty smooth run in this tournament. You've dispatched of your competition relatively easily at most of the time. Are you happy with your performance?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't lose a single map, so it's really good going to the final.
Is there a reason for that? Have you felt very confident coming into this tournament? Have you had a good practice schedule?
Not really, but we are a new team and not a lot of people expect us to be that good.
Carrigan, what about yourself? How does it feel facing off against EnVyUs in their current form? They're looking very strong.
In the past, we had problems with them, so we have to prepare better this time and play better. I mean, we want some revenge from Cologne, where we lost them in the semifinals, so that's what we're going for.
Talking about the problems, apparently you've never beaten this current lineup of EnVyUs. Why is that?
I think IEM we had some bad maps, but at Cologne they were just a better team than us. So this time there's a third map which is different. So I hope that will be in our advantage.
And Happy, how do you feel about that? Do you think that that you've got them figured out? Is that why you've never had a problem with them?
Actually, the map pool kind of favors us right now, so yeah, I think we're confident.
Okay, all right. Sorry, something going on backstage. A lot of shouting. Anyway, so that is it for now. Thank you so much for talking. Shake hands and then off to your stations. Audience, thank you all for being here. You've been amazing. Thank you for being loud and being passionate about Counter-Strike. DreamHack are very happy to have you here. So that's it for now. We're going to go back to the desk and get this final started. Let's do it.
All right, thanks a lot for that, brother. So here we are, right? It's TSM versus EnVyUs in the final. I want to talk about TSM. They haven't beaten this EnVyUs lineup, which is incredible, really, when you consider the talent they've got on their roster. I guess I need to ask you why this is.
Well, it just seems like like we said, this EnVyUs lineup, he just said it's a new lineup on paper. No one really knows how to play against them yet, but that seems to be changing slowly. We've seen them at Dubai actually getting knocked out by an IP. Finally, this honeymoon period seems to be over, and people are working out how they can lock them down. It's all about taking out the star players. If you can work out how to take down Kenny S, for example, or lock him out of the game, take key advantages out of their favor, that's going to be huge. And Carrigan said they're looking into what they can do to actually lock them down now and actually have enough information to base it on and kind of go into a different game plan, I think. So hopefully now it's just going to be about the homework and the preparation TSM have done. They've had time to do that. So let's see what they can bring to the table. It'll be exciting to see where this one goes.
Yeah.
I think this is actually, if you look at the current EnVyUs lineup, based on the roles that they now fit, I think this has more potential to be successful than the previous lineup. I think the upgrade of Kenny S is massive, and Apex fills the shoes that Shock's left quite comfortably so far. I think he's stepped up. That's been the key to it for me. He has to. But the other guy that definitely gets a little more pressure applied to him is Kiyoshima on the entry fragging. And I think he's been underrated in that role for a long time. So he's got a chance now to showcase himself. And if he does so, and Kenny S steps up as he has done throughout the weekend, this team could be unreal. So TSM's going to have to find a way to lock him down, like Henry said.
Duncan, again, just about this TSM being unable to beat EnVyUs. We talk a lot about matchups, right? When we're doing our analysis, we say, well, the matchup favors them. I don't think people really go into explaining why that might be the case in certain matchups. So can you put a fine point on what it is about this matchup that has favored EnVyUs to date?
Well, one of the things about this EnVyUs lineup and the old EnVyUs lineup is actually that they really can brute force teams. So really intelligent tactical teams like TSM, the trick is you watch someone's demos, and once you have it down, the rough tendencies they do, you're like, right, here's my playbook, here's the 2 or 3 things I'm going to keep going to. It still can work for EnVyUs. They've got so much skill, and that frustrates people because then you're like, you have that point where you have to think, right, am I calling the wrong tactic? Are we just not able to execute
you question your actual tactic instead of your aim. That's what exactly. It's just the raw skill. It doesn't matter what you're presenting to them, they can actually answer back pretty formidably every time.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, and then one other thing to add in is that even though TSM, I think of them as like a hybrid tactical skill-based team, sometimes if they want to, like in some of these games before where they looked like they were messing around against Copenhagen Wolves, they know, right, hey, we can always pull it out of the bag. We've got one of the most skilled lineups in the world. EnVyUs is a more skilled lineup. They're probably the only team in the world that can say, hey, we've got better players man for man than everyone on TSM. So that's actually why I think this is an extremely exciting matchup, because if you're TSM, do you try and still just go skill-wise and let it be a chaotic game? Do you try and say, okay, here's the approach. We have to go purely into our tactics. We have to play as though we're the underdogs, which we very rarely ever have to do, and we'll make it solely about execution. And then, hey, maybe then EnVyUs, they're a little more sloppy in how they do it. Maybe that gives us the edge there. So I think it's actually not so much EnVyUs, it's more like TSM's, they're the ones trying to figure out what is our approach here, because against other teams, it's not going to be the same approach because no one can outskill TSM.
Well, let's talk about EnVyUs then. I mean, you know, we've talked a lot about TSM and their individual talents. You know, we've given a lot of props to Device, rightly so, even though I don't think he's even hit his highest level yet at this tournament. What is it about this EnVyUs lineup that makes them so good? What are the kind of high points here? I mean, is it the addition of Kenny S? I mean, or Apex, or is it some of the old guard in the form of MBK Kiyoshima?
I think it's the only team at the moment at the top in CSGO where there's no defined star player still. We still haven't figured out who it is. So Kiyoshima earlier in the year was very, very good for EnVyUs. Apex, since he's come in, has been like a revelation compared to his form in Titan. Happy used to be the best player in the team when they won the major. He was super consistent. Kenny S once was the best player in the whole world, playing absolutely... I mean, you saw how crazy the crowd went there when he's introduced. He's not even in form at the moment, but everyone knows the potential is there. If he somehow snaps in even for a game, he can just take over the whole game. So it's which way do you want it? They can give it to you any way you want it. AWPing, entry fragging, lurking. They can do everything almost in the game.
Guys, anything to add to that?
I love the partnership between Kiyoshima and Apex. I think it's really cool to watch, especially on maps like Mirage. They can just go through choke points that aren't even favorable towards them, flick shots almost all over the place. Their AK-47 work is scary to watch sometimes, incredibly skilled, and it's one of the best partnerships in the game.
Well, it's actually something where I've got a little detail I'll just add, which is when they first made this team, I made a video and I was speculating, like, oh, how will they do it? Because, okay, Apex was the pure entry fragger in Titan, Kiyoshima was in that role in EnVyUs, and actually NBK reached out and he said, oh, well, what we're going to do is we're actually going to give like a sort of a mini leadership to Apex, and then he's going to have his own little team, which is the entry fraggers, and him or Kiyoshima, he kind of like leads the action, like, hey Kiyoshima, I'm going to do this, you follow up here. So entry, because obviously Happy's the lurker, he's off on the other side of the map, so it's like Happy calls the overall strat, but that particular synergy, there's someone triggering that. It's not just the in-game leader, because he can't know what those two entry fraggers who are explosive are going to want to do.
Well, this is the thing, and that's why Apex coming in, I think, has been the key to improvement, because, and I know where you're going with this, we'll get to that in just one sec, let me finish the thought, is basically that you've got to have a dual entry system. I think it works so much better. And Shock sometimes didn't necessarily want to. He was hesitant. He wanted to make those big plays. You know, he's got kind of that ego that people credit to him at times. And I think with the roles being defined now as they are, and Apex taking that responsibility, I think it's improved them heavily. Because a trade favors the T side. If you get one on the entry, even a refrag, you're going to get into the site.
So guys, what a treat we've got. Dust 2, Inferno, Mirage is going to be the series. It's going to start with Dust 2, and I think I've just been told, is it TSM are going to start on CT?
Here's what's interesting, Richard. So Happy has always been a very confident guy. He even said in an interview after this last EnVyUs lineup split up, he thought the last EnVyUs lineup should have been the best in the world the whole time. They just didn't live up to their potential. As phenomenal a team as they were. Thing is, that applies to maps as well. There's always been certain maps, he's always decided we're better on this map, even than our record shows. Well, I think this particular 3 maps that have been picked, I think they favor TSM actually. I think TSM's good on all 3. They're especially good on Dust 2. Meanwhile, if I'm looking at the EnVyUs guys, they've had a lot of losses on Dust 2, and their Mirage is a brand new map for them. So I think Inferno, they have a very good chance to win, but TSM's still good on it. And I actually think Dust 2 and Mirage, I'm putting them to TSM's side.
From what I've seen from Mirage, from EnVyUs this tournament at least, they seem very strong in it, but the lineups they've played against perhaps haven't presented to them too much. We saw them play against Dignitas, it was a pretty one-sided affair, I think it was 16-6. So they do seem comfortable in it. It's a map we haven't seen them play too much with this lineup, but I do think it's one of those maps, like I was saying, Apex and Kiyoshima can get rolling on that one, get the mid control, get into connector, and start splitting the A-bomb site. It's really hard to hold off, it doesn't matter who you're playing. So I think this is such a great map here. Dust 2, like TSM's best map, we talk about them being the best Dust 2 team in the world. I favor that towards them. Inferno and Mirage though, Inferno I'd say EnVyUs, Mirage 50-50. I'm not really sure what to call that one. So this is going to go all the way, and it's going to be a really great series.
The thing as well that you were talking about with brute force with EnVyUs, and I agree with what we're saying, the dual entry, it puts a lot of pressure on the CT side of TSM. I think the EnVyUs T side is going to be more the threat, because then you go back to what you were saying a second ago, Thorn, about how do you outskill them? Well, you do it tactically, and on their CT side, with new players, new roles, new communication, that's where you're going to beat them. TSM is going to have to use their utilities, create executions that's going to confuse, again, and disorganize EnVyUs. So I really think that EnVyUs, their case to winning this is going to be those entry kills on their T sides.
And in terms of the vetoes, these make total sense, even what we were discussing earlier. So it was obvious to me that Cobblestone had to be the TSM veto. And like I said, the guys from EnVyUs do not play Overpass, so that they're banning that out themselves. Beyond that, okay, there was a little bit more play. They could decide, are we going to ban Train? Are we going to ban Cash? In the end, they did go with those bans, and as a result, we've ended up with what I think overall is a pretty good series, but the problem here, I think, for the EnVyUs guys is on all the maps they have a chance, except Dust 2's the one where they haven't proven it yet. That's the one where there's a lot of question marks for them.
That's the only map they've dropped to TSM.
And that's why I think this is a real tantalizing prospect to open up with, because it could give TSM this head start, give them an immediate advantage, which they haven't had against EnVyUs yet.
And their CT side is incredible on that map. So to go back to the point I just made, if the T side for EnVyUs is going to be important, this map's going to be the hardest challenge.
And if you want to talk just as the decider, this is a perfect decider, not only for like the TSM EnVyUs matchup, but for where TSM is as a team. Because when TSM became not the #1 team, but that scary, dangerous team that was winning titles, beating Fnatic left, right, and center, the map that changed in the pool and turned it to them was Mirage. They became this team that was, everyone had the good CT side Mirage. They had the good CT, and then they had like 7, 8 T rounds. So that was the key. And as they started to lose that recently was where they stopped kind of being the team that were always winning the tournament, where suddenly they could lose in a semi-final. Sometimes Fnatic didn't even have to play them. So I think if they can win Mirage here and beat EnVyUs, kill 2 birds with 1 stone, show like, hey, maybe we are going to be the #1 team now, and we've got Mirage back again. Now the map pool's back in our favor.
So guys, when the TSM players come out with that huddle, we are going to go live. I need to start nailing you down for some predictions. Let's just start with Dust 2. How do we see this one, and how is it going to go?
I think if you're basing on statistics and who we think's the better team on this map, it's going to be TSM for sure. So I'm going to say them taking this first map. It's going to be really close, like 16-13 probably.
Yeah, I was thinking 16-14. I also want to highlight something as well is the setup on the CT side. Everyone always looks to Cajun B to hit those op shots, those crazy op shots on the catwalk. But the player for me that you have to watch is Xyp9x inside that CT, being able to support, making sure no one drops down, getting the flashes up to allow it. So he's going to be an integral part of this game, and he's been playing really well this weekend. So
and you
I
noticed
want
in
to
the huddle having a long conversation with Carrigan. I think they got someone up their sleeve, don't they?
Yeah, I actually think that this is going to be a TSM win. This is the one I'm most confident about. So I'm thinking like 16-10, 16-11. And I actually think Cajun B is the man. This is like his map. This is the one where when he has a crazy map on this, that's why not only are they really good, they're unbeatable at times on this map.
Okay, well guys, look, thanks a lot for your thoughts. We need to get into this final. Let's get this show on the road. It's going to be TSM versus EnVyUs. Dust 2's the first map, and DreamHack know what you want. That's why you have got the premier CSGO casting duo casting these finals. Take it away, Anders and Semler.